Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you, Tina. Can I get someone in the back of the house to turn the heater off, please? And thank you for singing with Tina, because she would have went on forever. And then I'd get a text from Nicole, who's unfortunately homesick, saying you're going over. So thank you for singing with her. So welcome to 2020. And how many of you guys remember Y2K? And remember that? What was the fear? That this January 1st, nothing would work. Our alarm clocks wouldn't work, and for millennials in the house, that's your cell phone. Our computers wouldn't work, so companies spent millions of dollars fixing that, and it's either they did a very, very good job, or it wasn't that big of a deal to be worried about. Did anyone have any problems? No. But welcome to 2020. Our vision for 2020 is 2020 vision. And we're a spiritual community, so maybe that has something to tell us. Maybe it's about telling us that we need to look with very clear eyes at what we're doing. And maybe we've had something that just isn't working in our life for the last decade or so. Maybe we can look clearly at that and decide to do something different. And maybe we can look clearly at our spiritual practices and our spiritual principles, because we're going to talk a little bit later about these two things that keep bothering us. That's fear and separation. So maybe we can have that 2020 vision and look very clear at what we're doing and be a little bit proactive on how we're changing our spiritual life. Because we know if we change our spiritual life, what else changes? Everything. Absolutely. So welcome to 2020. This month is all about getting grounded. And I'm a water person, so rather being on terra firma, I'd like to be in a nice, cool, calm pool where I'm totally supported by water. But it's about getting grounded. And in this movement, that's what we do every January. And we're following that. And I've got another easy topic assigned to me. It's called In the Beginning, God. So what should be simpler than answering the question, what is God anyway? Piece of cake, huh? So, and I know that for some of us, the term God has a charged connotation for good reason, because we have an old spiritual background that's still a bit of a thorn for us, and we have these visions of God as something foreign to us. So it doesn't matter what we call what I'm going to talk about. We can call it life, we can call it love, we can call it the universe, we can call it the divine presence. But in the beginning, there was this divine presence. And the founder of this philosophy, Dr. Ernest Holmes, the one thing he did, which I think has distinguished him from anyone else, is he went about and studied all the spiritual philosophies, all the religious teachings, and tried to grab the nuggets from all of them and weave this thread of truth throughout and give us a product that would help us sort our way through the many paths that was practical, that was logical, that we could use in our daily life. And he came up with this very small book that we call the Science of Mind textbook. So I don't recommend that if you're here for the first time. If you're here for the first time, I'm absolutely thrilled. So just take a class with us or two. And I have the pleasure, and I think Nicole's actually coming back to help me co-facilitate. We're doing a class called The Foundation of the Science of Mind. And this class is so meaningful to me because in this class, what you will get, it's a 10-week class, and each week you will get one of our basic principles and one of our basic practices. So at the end of that 10 weeks class, you will have at least an elementary understanding of everything that we teach here. And so it's near and dear to my heart. I highly recommend it. I like the new format that we're teaching with the principles and practices. And we'll cover the whole gambit by it. But back to the subject. In the beginning, God. So Ernest Holmes came up with this book, wrote this book, and his original concept was that this book would be an educational book, and it would be used throughout all the different religions. Didn't matter if you were Catholic, Baptist, you could get something out of this book. And that's how our organization started. It was an educational institute. But he was finally convinced to make it a spiritual movement. And he says, the only way I'll agree to it has to be unique and it has to be different. And the way it has to be unique, he says, it must grab these fruits, these gems from all the different spiritual traditions. And so he didn't want it to be dogmatic at all. And like my minister friends and I joke, it's hard to teach an old dogma new tricks. And is Florian over there? Florian says I need to smile when I said that. So those are the two basic premises that a founder talked about. It has to take the gems from all the different traditions because there is where the truth gets weaved. And we're never exclusive. We're always inclusive, and that's a powerful place to be. And then we're open at the top. So his vision, as we shared many a time here, is we're in this evolution of consciousness. And you are a very important part of that evolution of consciousness each and every day. And the more power you bring to it, the more good that you do. So there's this evolution of consciousness, and that's why it's not just about sacred text, although they're very great, as you know. I love to read sacred text. But it's about the new and upcoming stuff. And that's why Reverend Nicole gets her hands around this stuff called rewiring your brain and gives you the workshops on it, how we can make practical aspect of the way we think. And that's why I love to share with you this stuff about the new physics. As much as I hated, and Lynn probably hated it, the math in college, but it's reaffirming our principle. And it's like, and we're doing it at all ends. We're doing it from becoming more human. I listened for the first time to the Brene Brown YouTube, not series, but the 24-minute talk on shame. And we're changing so much. We're evolving so much. Humanity is evolving so much. And I was like, as a white middle-aged male, I'm the one who's had all the privilege. So I have to take that into consideration. And I was disappointed because Brene Brown said that, well, the male species see shame as just weakness. So I stopped studying them. But the females understand and are taking it forward. So my dear hope is that the male species, and I know there are some of us that are very proactive in it, will take a different approach. We'll take a different approach because it's all about integrators. It's all about taking the female side of us and the male side of us and integrating the two. It's a powerful place to be. And so we have this great work by Ernest Holmes. One of Reverend Josh's favorite quotes from Ernest, and I like it too, goes like this. And when I say religious science is the old organization from which we came, and now we're called the Centers for Spiritual Living. And one of the main reasons we did that, because we didn't want to be associated with two other movements, and those were Scientology and Christian Science. Great, what a great audience. But anyway, he said this: religious science is a correlation of laws of science, the opinions of philosophy and revelations of religion applied to the needs of humanity and the aspiration of humankind. So when he talks about this one, this God, this spirit, this life, it's in the first chapter of that book. And his title for it is The Thing Itself. And what he talks about is what you hear I'm not going to say every, but whenever a practitioner or a minister prays with you, a lot of times what they'll use as a centering piece is God is all there is. And that's the message, and that's our message, is the one thing that God is not. It's this angry white man up in the sky that's judging you, that's giving you tasks to do, that's belittling you, that says, I'm holding your providence until you do certain things. No, Ernest told us that God is everything. Spirit is everything. It's you, it's me, it's the entire physical reality. And it comes from this great essence of this creative force or principle. How did Ernest Holmes say it? He says, the study of the science of mind is a study of first cause, a study of spirit, mind, or that invisible essence, that ultimate stuff or intelligence from which everything comes. The power back of creation is the thing itself. So when we talk about spirit, we talk about all that is and all that's yet to be. It's in the physical, it's in the world, and it's in that space before physical things come into reality. There's nothing around where you can't see God or spirit. Nothing. And it's a powerful place for us to be. And there's any creative, I think it's perfectly logical that there can never be two powers, good and bad. Because if there's a creative power in the universe, it must be creative and not destructive. It must be after love and peace and joy and compassion. That's what Dr. Holmes really thought. And that's why he kept us open at the top. Absolutely open at the top. So he started this educational path, allowed it to grow to a spiritual movement, and allowed us to continue to get the blessings of the truth. And he had this vision that it would allow us to move the planet forward. He had this vision that this would be the way for us to move the planet forward. And sometimes it doesn't look like that by our numbers in our church structures, our center structures. But like I say, if you want to understand that we're evolving, don't look in months and years, look in decades. Look how we've done with the civil rights movement. Look at all the acceptance we've done with the LGBTQ community. Go back 50 years. Go back in the 1950s. And think, are we evolving or not? I think the answer is always, always yes. It's a powerful place for us to be. And so I want to talk about three aspects of what Dr. Holmes talked about in that. One is the aspect of oneness. we're this one divine energy, or what's even beyond energy. All that's been created and all that's yet to be created is all part of the divine. There's no separation. So there's not us down here working in this immanent world, working in this dog-eat-dog world, and some transcendent God up there that we have to do something to get favor with. Because the gift of you is you are this beautiful divine expression, and you had to do nothing to earn that gift. When you came into this life experience, you are this beautiful divine expression that knows who she is. Absolutely knows. And I'll go into later that we just forget from fear and separation that we've been trained from the external world to do that. And so in 1929, Dr. Ernest Holmes was asked, they were going to publish the first Science Mind magazine, which I know a lot of us still read. They said, Dr. Holmes, would you write down some statements on what we believe? His first one was this: we believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation. The manifest universe is the body of God. It is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. So it's all about God's Spirit, the universe, really being one body. Someone told me the definition of enlightenment was the time that the wave understood it was the ocean, and that we know that we're not the entire ocean, but we have the experience that we're the ocean in a single drop. Because what is out there is in us. And we're just unique in our beautiful divine expression. So that's the concept of oneness. And you can call this whatever you want again: life, universe, divine expression. But remember what it's not. Remember, it's not this isolated being or idol or deity, whatever you want to call it, that's detached from us. So the God and the Spirit is us. It's both immanent in the world and transcendent above the world. And when we use the power of our mind, which is thinking in this divine mind, great things can happen. So the second point I want to make is, what does that mean for you and I? So once again, we are not separated. We are not this individual entity that has these mechanical rules we can follow and do good in our life. We can do that, but that's a very limited way of thinking about it. And Ernest Holmes tells us this, and excuse the gender non-appreciative language. He wrote this in the 30s, I think, where we came from. He says, God has made you out of himself. The only material he had was a spiritual substance of his own being. The only mind he had to implant in you was his mind. The only spirit he had to implant in you was his own spirit. We must unify our mentalities with pure spirit. We must recognize the absolute unity of the oneness. Man is in God, and God is in man. And that is the recognition Jesus said when he said, I and the Father are one. And the Bible keeps telling us this. I don't know where a lot of traditions get this idea of separation. The Bible tells us in God we live and move and have our being. And in Ephesians it says, one God who is above all, through all, and in you all. I could even say that one down south. But, and our favorite, if someone asks you what you believe about the Bible, the favorite thing I would say, just tell me it is done to you as you believe. That's what Jesus told us. Because it is. Because this talk I'm giving you is not a talk on how to make practical use of it. And I have an analogy. So when I was a basketball player, the day before the game, our coaches would sit us in a room and make us vision shooting 1,000 shots and vision every one of those shots going straight through the hoop, and what we used to say in the day with nothing but net, 1,000 times. What I'm trying to get you to understand, which you already understand and recommit to, is remembering who you are. Because you are this wonderful divine aspect that's brought here to do great things. And what just gets in the way is our belief, mistaken belief in fear and separation. But we are this wonderful, wonderful divine aspect. And the Bible tells us so, and Ernest Holmes wrote extensively on the Bible teachings. And the third one I want to talk about is the conscious life evolving in us and around us. So Moses, when he went to the mountain to get the 10 Commandments, he was talking to this burning bush. And he got through and he had it all ready. And Moses had to be human just like the rest of us. And he says, come on, I have to tell them where they came from, and I don't want to tell them I came from a burning bush. Give me a name. Give me something to go forward with. And the burning bush said, tell them it came from I am that I am. And I am that I am is the concept that covers the last two topics I talked about. The I amness of the divine that is before reality or creating reality and is embedded and intermeshed in the middle of reality. And so what we do is we forget this. We forget this empowerment that we get. Ernest Holmes tells us about that. He says, where we get this sense of I am from. He says, there's one infinite mind from which all things come. This mind is in, through, and around us. It is the only mind there is every time we think we use it. It is one infinite spirit. And every time we say, I am, we proclaim it. So the words I am are extremely powerful. And so what you have inside of you, it's not the whole ocean, it's your drop in the ocean. It's your beautiful, unique seed of the divine. And nothing's taken that away from you. Nothing is powerful enough to say you aren't blessed, you aren't whole, you aren't complete. All you have to do is turn within, and it's there for you. And so I've had a request to have some practical stuff for you guys to continue to work on when you're not here. And so my challenge to you and my ask to you is, can you take 5 minutes a day and say some type of prayer or affirmation that continues to remind you of who you are? Remember, this is just pregame stuff. But we're trying to get our mind right? Because we can say the words. If we're saying the words and different things are flitting about, well, I say that, but I really don't believe it. This is about getting our mind right. This is about remembering who we truly are, remembering how blessed we are, how powerful we are. And so, if you don't have one, I put one in your program for you. I understand from 9 o'clock it may have been a bit of an eye test. So, can we read it together? 5 minutes a day, before you get up, while you wait in the car, stay in your car before you go home. It goes like this. I am more than my body. I am more than my past. I am more than my problems. I am more than my stuff, more than my money, more than my status, and even more than my dreams. I am spirit having a human experience. I am being of light, an expression of the one life. So that's the power and the presence of who you are. And all those things I just made you say you are not is what the physical world is trying to convince you of separation and fear. So do your pregame exercise. Do your 1,000 shots and send them through the hoop and get your mind set. And I think that will get us off to a very, very good start for this New Year's. Thank you, and God bless you.